My name is Coco, and I am 27 years old. 3 days before my birthday, I received an anonymous video that shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. The footage revealed their secret plan to ambush me at my own celebration. Without hesitation, I canceled the party, packed a bag, and disappeared without telling anyone where I was going. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife because it came from the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. Before I continue my story, let me know where you are watching from and hit subscribe if you have ever felt betrayed by those closest to you. Life in San Francisco had been good to me. I worked as a graphic designer for a progressive marketing firm downtown, creating campaigns for everything from local coffee shops to major tech startups. My apartment was small but perfectly located in a vibrant neighborhood with Victorian houses painted in bright colors and quirky cafes on every corner. Most importantly, my best friend Jasmine lived just 10 minutes away by bus. We met in college and had been inseparable ever since. Jasmine was the person I called for everything from fashion advice to emotional breakdowns. She knew more about me than anyone else in the world. My family, on the other hand, lived across the bay in a suburban community where I grew up. We were what most people would call a typical American family on the surface. But beneath that carefully cultivated image lay complicated dynamics that had shaped my life in ways I was only beginning to understand. My mother, Amanda, was the undisputed matriarch of our family. Everything revolved around her opinions, her schedules, and her vision of how things should be. She managed our family like a corporate CEO with detailed plans for every occasion and specific expectations for each family member. Nothing ever happened without her approval, and deviation from her plans was met with passive-aggressive comments or outright criticism. She had a talent for making her disapproval known through a simple arch of her eyebrow or subtle change in tone. My father, Harold, existed mainly in her shadow. A financial analyst who spent most of his life avoiding conflict, he found it easier to go along with whatever Amanda wanted than to assert his own opinions. I could count on one hand the number of times I had seen him stand up to her, and even those rare occasions ended with him eventually capitulating to keep the peace. He loved us in his quiet way, but that love never translated into protection from my mother's controlling nature. Brittany, my older sister by 3 years, was the golden child. She followed our mother's life plan, perfectly becoming a successful corporate attorney, marrying a suitable man from a good family, and producing 2 perfect grandchildren right on schedule. She and my mother shared a special bond, frequently exchanging knowing glances when they thought I was making poor life choices. Brittany had always been competitive with me, but in subtle ways that made me seem paranoid if I pointed them out. Coco always was the sensitive one, they would say with a smile that never quite reached their eyes. My younger brother Brandon seemed different at first. 2 years my junior, he had always been the family joker, diffusing tense situations with well-timed humor and seeming to genuinely enjoy my company. We shared a love of obscure indie bands and offbeat movies. Yet, there had always been something slightly off about our relationship that I could never quite pinpoint. He would disappear into private conversations with my mother and emerge looking at me differently. I had attributed it to normal family dynamics, but looking back, I should have paid more attention. The only person who ever truly seemed to see me was my Uncle Theodore, my father's older brother, the black sheep of the family who never married and traveled the world as a photographer. Theodore was viewed with a mixture of fascination and disapproval by the rest of the family. Whenever he visited, he brought strange gifts and stranger stories, always taking extra time to talk to me about my art and aspirations. My mother tolerated him because he was family, but she made it clear she considered him a bad influence. Not everyone should follow Theodore's example, she would say pointedly after he left. Some people need to grow up and accept responsibility. My childhood memories were filled with subtle patterns of criticism disguised as concern. When I won second place in an art competition at age 12, my mother said, "Well, at least you participated." Brittany always won first place in her spelling bees. When I got accepted to art school with a partial scholarship, the response was, "That is nice, but it is a shame you could not get a full ride like your sister did for law school." Small comments, constant comparisons, always leaving me feeling slightly inadequate. Birthdays in our family were elaborate affairs planned down to the minute by my mother. My birthdays in particular seemed to become opportunities for improvement discussions. On my 16th birthday, my mother gave me a subscription to a fitness magazine with a concerned talk about my health. On my 21st, my family staged what they called a style intervention, where they replaced my entire wardrobe with clothes my mother deemed more appropriate. Each celebration came with strings attached, but I had convinced myself that this was normal, that this was love. For my upcoming 28th birthday, I had finally convinced my mother to let me host the party at my apartment. It had taken months of negotiation with her, raising concerns about everything from parking to my limited entertaining space, but eventually she had relented. I saw it as a small victory in establishing my independence, a chance to welcome my family into my world on my terms for once. I had spent weeks planning the perfect menu, decorating my apartment, and even creating custom invitations with my own artwork. The guest list included my immediate family, a few cousins, Uncle Theodore, if he could make it back from his latest trip to Iceland, and a handful of close friends, including Jasmine. 3 weeks before the party, I received a significant promotion at work. My designs for a major tech company campaign had been selected over those from much more senior designers, and my boss had called me into her office to personally congratulate me on my innovative approach. I was ecstatic and immediately called my family to share the news. "That sounds nice, dear," my mother had said distractedly. "Speaking of work, Brittany just won a major case that was featured in the legal journal." "Cool beans, sis," Brandon had responded. "Hey, I need to run. Mom is on the other line." My father had been slightly more enthusiastic, but quickly changed the subject to ask if I was still planning to make his favorite chocolate cake for the birthday party. Only Jasmine had properly celebrated with me, showing up at my apartment with champagne and staying up late listening to me talk about my ideas for future projects. The contrast between her reaction and my family's had stung, but I brushed it aside as I always did. Looking back, I should have noticed the growing distance between my family and me over the past year. Phone calls had become shorter and more distracted. Family dinners featured more questions about my personal life with subtle suggestions for improvement. My mother had started making more comments about when you will settle down like your sister and finding a career with more stability. There had been secretive phone conversations that stopped when I entered rooms, sudden changes in plans without explanation, and strange exchanges of glances that left me feeling like I was missing something important. But I had spent a lifetime ignoring warning signs, convincing myself that families were complicated and mine was no different. I had developed a talent for making excuses for their behavior, for blaming myself when things felt wrong. It was easier than admitting the truth that perhaps the people who were supposed to love me the most actually did not like the person I had become. All of these thoughts were far from my mind as I finalized preparations for my birthday party. I was focused on creating the perfect event, one that would finally make my family see me as the capable, successful adult I had become. I had no idea that they had very different plans for my special day plans that would change everything. 3 days before my birthday, I was working late on a project when my personal email pinged with a new message. The subject line immediately caught my attention: "What they do not want you to know." The sender was an anonymous email address, just a string of random numbers and letters at a generic domain. My first instinct was to delete it as spam, but something made me hesitate. There was an attachment labeled "Watch. Before. Your. Birthday. MP. 4, and a brief message: "You deserve to know the truth before Saturday. I am sorry." No signature, no explanation, just those ominous words hanging in my inbox. I stared at the screen for several minutes, cursor hovering over the delete button. It was probably just a scam, I reasoned, or perhaps a misguided prank from someone who thought they were being funny. But the specific mention of my birthday sent a chill down my spine. This was targeted, personal. Against my better judgment, I downloaded the file and scanned it for viruses before opening it. The video began playing, and within seconds, my entire body went cold. The footage showed my parents' living room, clearly recorded recently based on the new couch they had purchased last month. Seated around the coffee table were my mother, father, sister, Brittany, and brother Brandon. They appeared to be in the middle of what my mother always called a family meeting, something she organized whenever important decisions needed to be made or someone had failed to meet her expectations. "We all agree then," my mother was saying, her voice crisp and authoritative as she looked around the room. "The birthday party will be the perfect opportunity for our intervention. Coco has been spiraling for too long, and it is time we addressed it directly." Intervention spiraling, I leaned closer to my screen, unable to process what I was hearing. Her lifestyle choices are becoming embarrassing, Brittany added, smoothing her perfectly styled hair. That apartment in that neighborhood, that dead-end creative job, those people she hangs around with. She is nearly 30 and has nothing substantial to show for it. I told you what I found when I was at her place last month, Brandon said, leaning forward eagerly. Empty wine bottles in the recycling takeout containers everywhere, and her bathroom cabinet was full of antidepressants and anxiety medication. My hand flew to my mouth. Brandon had stopped by unexpectedly when I was at work, and I had told him to wait for me there. He had been snooping through my things, reporting back to them. The medication had been prescribed by my doctor to help manage stress from work. The wine bottles were from a dinner party I had hosted the previous weekend. The takeout containers were because I had been working late on the very project that earned me my promotion. The way she dresses is not doing her any favors either, my mother continued. Those oversized artistic clothes hide her figure completely. No wonder she cannot find a suitable partner. Speaking of which, Brittany interjected, my colleague Patrick is still single and has a stable career. I showed him Coco's picture from Christmas, the one where she actually made an effort, and he said he would be willing to meet her. Excellent, my mother nodded approvingly. We will make sure they sit together at the party. He can come as your +1 so Coco will not suspect anything. My father sat silently through all of this, occasionally nodding but offering no objections. His passivity, so familiar, felt like a betrayal all its own. Now my mother continued, pulling out what looked like a notebook. I have prepared a list of talking points for each of us. Harold, you will focus on financial stability and the importance of a retirement plan. Brittany, you handle career advancement and professional image. Brandon, since you are closest to her, you will address her social life and these concerning habits you have noticed. I will tackle her overall life direction and the importance of family values. What about the gifts? Brandon asked. Are we still doing presents, or will that undermine the intervention? My mother considered this. We will still do gifts, but they should reinforce our message. I have purchased a complete professional wardrobe consultation. Brittany, you mentioned a gym membership. Premium package with personal training sessions, my sister confirmed with a satisfied smile. They specialize in complete transformations. Perfect, Harold. My father cleared his throat. I set up a meeting with my financial advisor. He is willing to take Coco on as a client and help her reorganize her finances. And I got her that self-help book series we talked about, Brandon added. The one about finding your real potential and stopping self-sabotage. They continued discussing the details of my intervention for several more minutes, planning how they would corner me in my own apartment, using my birthday as an opportunity to tell me everything that was wrong with me and how they planned to fix it. They talked about me as if I were a problem, to be solved, a disappointment that needed correction. Then the camera shifted slightly, and Uncle Theodore's voice came from behind the lens. Do you all hear yourselves right now? This is not an intervention, this is an ambush. Coco is a talented, kind person who is building a life that makes her happy. Just because it does not look like what you would choose does not make it wrong. Nobody asked for your input, Theodore, my mother replied coldly. This is precisely why we did not invite you to this meeting. You have always encouraged her impractical tendencies. By impractical tendencies, do you mean her creativity and independence? Theodore shot back. The very qualities that just earned her a significant promotion that none of you bothered to acknowledge. A promotion at a trendy marketing startup is hardly job security, Brittany scoffed. And how exactly do you know about her promotion? My mother asked Theodore suspiciously. Because I actually listen when she calls me, Theodore replied. Something the rest of you might try sometime. The video ended abruptly there, leaving me staring at a black screen, my reflection showing a face contorted with shock and hurt. I played it again, and again, and again. Each viewing revealed new, painful details. I had missed the casual dismissal of my achievements, the invasion of my privacy, the complete lack of respect for my choices, the way they talked about me as if I were a child incapable of managing my own life. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely close the video. My stomach lurched and I barely made it to the bathroom before becoming violently ill. Leaning against the cool tile wall afterward, I tried to make sense of what I had just witnessed. Had I misunderstood? Was I overreacting? Maybe they were coming from a place of love, misguided as it was. Maybe all families did this sort of thing behind closed doors. But no matter how I tried to rationalize it, the truth was undeniable. The family I had spent my life trying to please had been plotting behind my back, discussing me like a problem that needed fixing rather than a person deserving of respect. I spent the night analyzing years of interactions through this new lens. The backhanded compliments, the small criticisms, the constant monitoring and judgment. All the times I had felt subtly diminished but told myself I was being too sensitive. All the times I had changed myself to try to earn their approval, only to find the target had moved again. My phone pinged with a text from my mother, just confirming we will all arrive at 3 p.m. on Saturday. Father is looking forward to your chocolate cake. Do you need me to bring anything? The party favors. Perhaps I noticed you never have quite mastered the art of proper party presentation. Such a normal text on the surface, helpful even. But now I could see the criticism embedded within the offer, the assumption that I could not handle things on my own. I did not reply. I could not. Instead, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, tears streaming silently down my face as I mourned the family I thought I had and faced the reality of the one I actually did. By morning, I knew what I needed to do. I woke up after a fitful night of sleep with swollen eyes and a clarity I had never experienced before. The path forward suddenly seemed obvious, though terrifying. I would not sit quietly and allow my family to ambush me in my own home. I would not defend myself against their predetermined judgments or try once again to earn their approval. Instead, I would simply not be there. My hands were steady as I called my workplace. Linda, my boss answered on the second ring. Coco, everything okay? You are never calling this early. I need to take emergency personal leave, I said, surprised by the calmness in my voice. Starting today through next week. There was a pause on the line. Is this about your amazing work on the Fulton campaign? Because if you are worried about handling the increased responsibility after your promotion, I want you to know that I have complete confidence in your abilities. The simple vote of confidence from my boss nearly broke my composure. Here was someone who actually saw my value, who recognized my contributions without attaching conditions or criticisms. It is not that I managed. It is a family situation that I need to handle. Is everyone okay? Are you okay? The genuine concern in her voice made me realize how accustomed I had become to people questioning my judgment rather than my well-being. Not really, but I will be. I just need some time. Take what you need, Linda said without hesitation. Your projects are ahead of schedule anyway. Just keep me posted and let me know if there is anything I can do to help. Thank you, I whispered, ending the call before I could break down completely. Next, I opened my laptop and began searching for flights. I needed somewhere to go, somewhere my family would not think to look for me. Portland came to mind immediately. Jasmine's sister Grace lived there in a house with a spare room. I had met her several times when she visited San Francisco, and we had always gotten along well. With shaking fingers, I called Jasmine. Hey, birthday girl, she answered cheerfully, calling to give me last-minute party instructions. Jas, I said, my voice cracking. I need your help. There must have been something in my tone because her response was immediate and serious. What happened? Are you hurt? The dam broke, and I told her everything about the video, what my family had been planning, how they had been talking about me. As the words poured out, I paced my small apartment, feeling trapped by the very space I had lovingly decorated for a celebration that would never happen. Those manipulative, gaslighting, toxic. Jasmine rarely got angry, but I could hear the fury building in her voice. You know, this is not normal, right? This is not what loving families do. I think I am just starting to understand that, I admitted. What do you need? Whatever it is, I am here. Can you call Grace? Ask. If I can stay with her for a few days, I just need to not be here when they all show up. Consider it done. Grace will absolutely say yes, she adores you. What else? Help me stay strong. I keep thinking maybe I am overreacting, maybe I should just talk to them. Coco. Jasmine interrupted firmly. You are not overreacting. What they were planning was cruel and controlling. You deserve better than to be ambushed and criticized on your birthday. While Jasmine called her sister, I found a reasonably priced flight to Portland departing that afternoon. My hands hovered over the keyboard for a moment before I clicked purchase. This was really happening. I was running away from my own birthday party. As I packed a suitcase with essentials, my phone kept lighting up with messages from my mother about party details and questions that required immediate answers in her mind. Each one made my anxiety spike higher. What if they realized I was leaving? What if they showed up early to help and caught me in the act? Finally, I sent a brief text to the family group chat, not feeling well. Might need to postpone the party. We'll keep you posted. The response was immediate. My mother called twice in succession, then sent a message. What kind of not feeling well? We have been planning this for months. Everyone has made arrangements. Perhaps some medicine and rest today will have you feeling better by tomorrow. No concern for my health, just concern for her plans. It was so obvious now. My phone rang again and I let it go to voicemail. Then again, and again. I silenced it and continued packing. As I gathered my things, I found myself having a full-blown anxiety attack. My chest tightened, my breathing became shallow, and dark spots danced in my vision. I sat on the edge of my bed, head between my knees, trying to remember the grounding techniques my therapist had taught me years ago. 5 things I could see. My blue suitcase. The framed photo of Jasmine and me at graduation. The small crack in my ceiling. The pile of birthday decorations on my dresser. The sun streaming through my window. 4 things I could touch. My soft cotton sheets. The smooth surface of my phone. The zipper on my suitcase. My own hair falling around my face. 3 things I could hear: the traffic outside, the hum of my refrigerator. My own ragged breathing slowly steadying. 2 things I could smell: the lavender sachet in my drawer, the coffee I had made but not drunk. 1 thing I could taste: the salty remnants of tears on my lips. As my breathing normalized, I found myself staring at my bookshelf where an old journal was wedged between art books. I pulled it out, flipping through pages from 3 years ago. There, it was documentation of another family intervention, when I had decided to leave a stable job at an advertising agency to join the startup where I now worked. Pages of hurt feelings and self-doubt followed by my eventual decision to take the job anyway. It had been the right choice, one of the few times I had prioritized my own judgment over my family's, and it had led to my current success. This journal was evidence that I had been dealing with their manipulation for years, that this was not an isolated incident but a pattern. I tucked it into my bag alongside my passport and other important documents. My phone buzzed with a text from Jasmine. Grace says, "Come immediately. She is excited to have you stay as long as you need. She will pick you up from the airport. Just let me know your flight details." I responded with my flight information, then booked an Uber to the airport. As I waited, I drafted and deleted multiple longer explanations to my family. Nothing seemed right. How could I possibly explain in a text message the complexity of what I was feeling, the years of built-up resentment and hurt that had crystallized into this moment of decision? In the end, I sent nothing more. Let them wonder. Let them worry. For once, I would not manage their emotions or smooth things over. The Uber arrived and I took one last look at my apartment before closing the door. The birthday decorations I had so carefully selected now seemed like props for a performance I was no longer willing to give. The cake ingredients sitting on the counter would go unused. The new outfit I had purchased specifically to impress my family hung in the closet, tags still attached. As the car pulled away from my building, I felt a strange mixture of terror and liberation. I had no idea what would happen next, how my family would react, or what the long-term consequences of my actions would be. But for the first time in my life, I was choosing myself over their approval, and despite the pain and uncertainty that felt like the first real gift I had given myself in years. The airport was a blur of activity that matched my internal chaos. Security lines, announcements echoing through the terminal, travelers rushing in all directions with determined expressions. I moved through it all in a daze, my body on autopilot, while my mind raced through scenarios of what might happen in the next 24 hours. As I settled into my window seat on the plane, the older woman beside me gave me a concerned glance. "Flying is not my favorite either, dear," she said, kindly misinterpreting my distress. "But statistically, it is the safest way to travel." I attempted a smile. "It is not the flying that has me worried." Something in my expression must have invited confidence because she patted my hand gently. "Family troubles?" The simple question from a stranger nearly undid me. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak without breaking down completely. "My name is Martha," she said. "I have lived 78 years, raised 4 children, and outlived 2 husbands. There is not much I have not seen when it comes to family drama." "How do you know when you are making the right choice?" I asked the question, slipping out before I could stop it. "When it comes to family, I mean..." Martha considered this thoughtfully. "The right choice is rarely the easy one. But in my experience, if you are choosing your own peace and dignity, you are probably on the right track." She studied my face for a moment. "Some people confuse love with control. Real love gives you room to be yourself." Those simple words from a stranger validated what I had been feeling, but could not articulate. For the rest of the flight, Martha shared stories about her own family, the good, the bad, and the complicated. She never pressed me for details about my situation, but her gentle wisdom provided an unexpected comfort. When we landed in Portland, I thanked her sincerely. "Whatever you are running from or toward," she said as we parted ways, "remember that you are stronger than you think." Grace was waiting for me at the arrival gate, her warm smile, a welcome sight in the sea of unfamiliar faces. Unlike Jasmine's petite build and carefully coordinated outfits, Grace was tall with wild curly hair and dressed in comfortable layers that suggested practicality over fashion. She enveloped me in a hug without hesitation. "Welcome to Portland, birthday escape artist," she said, taking my bag. Jasmine filled me in. "My home is your sanctuary for as long as you need it." Grace's house was a cozy craftsman-style bungalow in a quiet neighborhood filled with similar homes and abundant greenery. The spare room was small but comfortable, with a window overlooking a garden bursting with early summer flowers. As I set down my bag, the reality of what I had done finally hit me. I had fled my home. I had run away from my family. I was hiding out in another city. "Second thoughts?" Grace asked, leaning against the doorframe. "A lifetime of them," I admitted. "But also a strange sense of relief." "That is your intuition telling you that you made the right call," she said. "Listen to it. Now, are you hungry? I made vegetable soup and sourdough, and there is wine if you want it." That first night away was filled with conflicting emotions. Relief at escaping the ambush my family had planned. Guilt for disappearing without a proper explanation. Anger at their betrayal. Fear of the confrontation that would inevitably come. Grace gave me space to process these feelings, keeping me company without pressing for conversation, offering food and distraction when the emotions became too overwhelming. As I lay in the unfamiliar bed that night, I checked my phone to find 17 missed calls and 32 text messages from various family members. I scrolled through them without opening any of the notification previews, telling me enough. "Coco, call me immediately. This is not acceptable behavior." "Sis, seriously, Mom is freaking out, just call someone." "Sweetheart, we are worried. Please respond." I turned off my phone and tried to sleep, but rest eluded me. What would happen tomorrow when they all showed up at my empty apartment? Would they be worried, angry? Would they finally realize how their behavior had affected me? Morning came with gray Portland skies and gentle rain tapping against the window. I turned my phone back on to find even more messages, but still could not bring myself to read them. Instead, I joined Grace for coffee on her covered porch, watching the rain create patterns on the garden leaves. "Happy birthday," she said softly, handing me a steaming mug. "Probably not how you planned to spend it." I had almost forgotten that today was actually my birthday. 28 years old, and I was hiding from my family in another state. Definitely not in the plan. "Plans are overrated," Grace shrugged. "Some of the best days of my life happened when plans fell apart." As the day progressed, my phone became increasingly active with calls and messages. I ignored them all, spending the day instead helping Grace in her garden, then walking through her neighborhood in the light rain, and finally sitting in a local coffee shop where nobody knew me or expected anything from me. The freedom was both exhilarating and terrifying. At exactly 3 p.m., the time my party was scheduled to begin, my phone exploded with activity. Jasmine texted me separately. "They are all at your apartment." Brittany called me, asking if I knew where you were. I played dumb. "Are you okay?" I imagined the scene, my family arriving with their carefully wrapped packages, containing their criticisms disguised as gifts, their rehearsed speeches about how I needed to change their plans to remake me in their image. I pictured their confusion when I did not answer the door, their initial irritation turning to concern, then anger as they realized I was not there. By evening, the messages had taken on a different tone. My mother had created a group chat titled, "Where is Coco?" that included my immediate family plus several cousins and friends. "Amanda, Coco has disappeared without explanation. Her apartment is empty. She is not answering calls or texts. If anyone has heard from her in the last 24 hours, please let us know immediately. Harold Princess, we are very worried. Please just let us know you are safe. Brittany, I cannot believe you would do this. Do you have any idea how much work went into planning today? Mom is beside herself. Everyone took time out of their busy schedules to be there for you." Brandon remained notably silent in the group chat but sent a private message. "Sis, whatever is going on, just let someone know you are okay. People are legit worried." The guilt these messages triggered was almost enough to make me respond immediately, but then I received a separate text from Uncle Theodore. "I assume from the family uproar that you got the video and made a choice to protect yourself. Good for you. Take the time you need. I am here when you are ready to talk." My breath caught. Uncle Theodore had sent the video. He had wanted me to know the truth, to see what was happening behind closed doors. He had given me the chance to make an informed choice rather than walking blindly into their trap. I called Jasmine and put her on speaker so Grace could join the conversation. "They are losing their minds," Jasmine reported. "Your mother called me 3 times. She even suggested calling hospitals." Theodore sent me the video, I told them. He was the anonymous source. "That makes sense," Jasmine said. "He always seemed to be the only one who actually respected you as an adult." "Should I call him?" I asked. "If you trust him, yes," Grace suggested. "It might help to have more context and to have an ally within the family." The call with Theodore was illuminating. He explained that he had been recording the meeting because he had become increasingly concerned about the family dynamic and wanted evidence of what was happening. "I have watched them undermine you for years, Coco," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "Always with smiles and claims that they just want what is best for you. When I heard about this birthday intervention, something in me snapped. You deserve to know." "What should I do now?" I asked him. "I cannot just hide forever." "You do not have to hide, but you also do not have to subject yourself to their judgment," he replied. "You are an adult. You get to set boundaries about how people treat you, even family, especially family." After talking with Theodore, Jasmine, and Grace, I decided it was time for a confrontation, but on my terms. I would do it by video call where I could control the interaction and end it if necessary with Jasmine beside me for support. I spent the rest of the evening preparing myself mentally, thinking about what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. Grace helped me set up a comfortable space for the call in her living room, and Jasmine coached me on setting boundaries and not getting drawn into their manipulation tactics. "Remember," she said, "you do not owe them an explanation for protecting yourself. You are not the one who did something wrong here." As midnight approached on my birthday, I sent a simple text to the family group chat, "I am safe. We'll call tomorrow at noon Pacific time to talk." Then I turned off my phone and tried to sleep, knowing that tomorrow would bring a confrontation unlike any I had ever faced with my family. The morning of the call, I woke early with a knot of anxiety in my stomach. Grace made breakfast, but I could barely eat. Jasmine arrived at 11, giving me a fierce hug before helping me prepare the living room for the video call. We positioned the laptop so that only I would be visible, with Jasmine sitting just out of frame where she could offer silent support. At exactly noon, I turned my phone back on to find dozens of new messages demanding explanations and expressing everything from concern to outrage. Ignoring them all, I initiated the video call to the family group. My mother answered immediately, her face appearing on screen with my father beside her and Brittany hovering in the background. Brandon joined the call separately from his apartment. "Coco," my mother exclaimed, her voice oscillating between relief and anger. "What is the meaning of this? Where are you? We have been worried sick." I took a deep breath, feeling Jasmine's reassuring presence beside me. "I am safe. That is all you need to know about my location right now." "This behavior is completely unacceptable," Brittany cut in. "Do you have any idea what you put us through? Mom had to take a tranquilizer last night because of the stress." "Why did you disappear like that?" my father asked, his voice gentler but still carrying an undercurrent of reproach. "We were all there for your birthday presents and everything." "Yes, let us talk about those presents," I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. "The wardrobe consultation, the gym membership, the financial advisor appointment, the self-help books. All carefully selected to fix what you see is wrong with me." A stunned silence fell over the call. My mother recovered first, her expression shifting from surprise to defensive indignation. "How could you possibly know about that? Were you spying on us?" "Does it matter how I know?" I countered. "The point is, I do know. I know about the intervention you planned. I know how you all talk about me when I am not there. I know that my birthday party was going to be an ambush designed to make me feel inadequate and pressure me to change according to your specifications." "That is a complete mischaracterization," my mother insisted. "We were planning to have a loving conversation about concerns we have. Because we care about you. You were planning to corner me in my own home, criticize my appearance, my career, my living situation, and my life choices, then present me with gifts designed to change me into someone you find more acceptable," I said. "That is not love, that is control." "You are being overdramatic as usual," Brittany interjected. "This is exactly the kind of emotional reaction that concerns us." I felt a flash of anger at her dismissal. "Brittany, you were going to bring a man to my party and try to set us up without my knowledge or consent. How is that not completely inappropriate?" Brandon, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke. "Coco, we were just trying to help. We worry about you." "Help me with what exactly?" I challenged him. "My successful career that just earned me a major promotion, my apartment in a neighborhood I love, my friends who actually support me. Or were you planning to help me with the drinking problem you invented based on recycling from a dinner party and the mental health issues you diagnosed by snooping through my private belongings?" His face flushed with guilt. "Mom asked me to check on some things when I was at your place. I did not mean to invade your privacy." "But you did," I said firmly. "You all did. You have been monitoring me, judging me, and planning to intervene in my life as if I were a child or an addict, not a successful adult who simply makes different choices than you would." "This is ridiculous," my mother declared. "We are your family. We have your best interests at heart. Everything we do is because we love you. If you loved me, you would respect me," I countered. "You would celebrate my successes instead of dismissing them. You would accept my choices even if they are different from yours. You would see me for who I am, not who you think I should be." "Where is all this coming from?" my father asked, looking genuinely bewildered. "We have always supported you." "Have you?" I asked him directly. "When was the last time you stood up for me when Mom or Brittany were criticizing my choices? When have you ever acknowledged that my path might be right for me even if it is different from what you would choose?" He had no answer, his gaze dropping away from the camera. "I have spent my entire life trying to earn your approval," I continued, emotion finally breaking through my calm facade. "Changing myself, doubting myself, making myself smaller to avoid your criticism. And it was never enough. I was never enough." "That is not true," my mother protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "It is true," I insisted, "and I am done. I am done trying to meet impossible standards. I am done accepting criticism disguised as concern. I am done with the comparisons, and the judgment, and the constant implication that who I am is somehow deficient." "So what are you saying?" Brittany demanded. "You are just cutting us off because we dared to express concern about your life choices." "I am saying that if you want to have a relationship with me moving forward, things need to change," I replied. "I need respect. I need acceptance. I need you to see me as an adult capable of making my own decisions, even if they are not the decisions you would make." "This is absurd," my mother declared. You are having some kind of breakdown. When you calm down and start thinking rationally again, we can discuss this like adults." Her dismissal of my feelings as irrational was so familiar, so predictable, that it almost made me laugh. This was exactly the dynamic I had been trapped in for years. "I am thinking more clearly than I ever have," I told her. "And I am setting a boundary. Until you can acknowledge that your behavior has been controlling and hurtful, and until you can commit to treating me with respect going forward, I need space from this relationship." "Space?" my mother repeated incredulously. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means I will not be in contact for a while. I need time to process everything that has happened and decide what kind of relationship I want with each of you going forward." "You cannot be serious," Brittany scoffed. "I am completely serious," I assured her. "This call is not a negotiation. It is me informing you of a decision I have already made." The conversation devolved from there into familiar patterns. My mother oscillated between anger and attempts to make me feel guilty. Brittany dismissed my feelings as overdramatic. My father tried ineffectually to mediate without actually addressing the core issues. Brandon mostly stayed silent, occasionally attempting to defend himself, but offering no real solutions. After 20 minutes, I had heard enough. "I have said what I needed to say. I will reach out when I am ready to talk again. Please respect my need for space." I ended the call before they could respond, then sat in silence for a moment, absorbing what had just happened. "You did it," Jasmine said softly, squeezing my shoulder. "That was incredibly brave." "I do not feel brave," I admitted. "I feel terrified, and sad, and somehow relieved all at the same time." My phone immediately began buzzing with calls and messages which I ignored. Instead, I called Uncle Theodore to update him on what had happened. "I am proud of you," he said when I finished recounting the conversation. "Setting boundaries is hard, especially with family, but it is necessary sometimes." "Did I do the right thing?" I asked him. "Cutting them off feels so extreme." "You did not cut them off permanently," he pointed out. "You asked for space to process your feelings and for acknowledgement of how their behavior affected you. Those are reasonable requests. Whether they can meet them will tell you a lot about the possibility of having a healthy relationship with them in the future." After the call, I turned off my phone completely. I needed a break from the constant barrage of messages trying to pull me back into familiar patterns of guilt and obligation. Instead, I spent the evening with Jasmine and Grace, watching movies and allowing myself to simply exist without judgment or expectation. It was the strangest birthday I had ever had, but also the most honest. For the first time in my adult life, I had stood up for myself, named what was happening, and refused to accept it any longer. The road ahead was uncertain, but I knew with absolute clarity that I could never go back to the way things had been before. The week following my confrontation with my family felt like the aftermath of a natural disaster, chaotic, disorienting, but with glimpses of possibility amid the destruction. I maintained my communication blackout, giving myself permission to focus solely on processing what had happened and figuring out my next steps. Jasmine returned to San Francisco but called daily to check on me. Grace proved to be an unexpectedly perfect housemate, giving me space when I needed it, but also drawing me out of my thoughts with invitations to help in her garden or join her for coffee at her favorite local spots. "Healing is not linear," she told me on my third day in Portland, when she found me crying over a photo of my family from a vacation years ago. "Some days you will feel strong, and certain others you will question everything. Both are valid." On my fourth day in Portland, Jasmine connected me with her former therapist, Dr. Catherine Morgan, who had relocated to Portland the previous year. I was hesitant about seeing someone new, but agreed to an initial consultation. Dr. Morgan's office was a sunlit space with plants in every corner and comfortable furniture that invited relaxation. She listened without judgment as I recounted my family history, the video, my escape, and the confrontation. "What you are describing," she said gently, when I finished, "sounds like a pattern of emotional manipulation that has been normalized in your family dynamic. Your reaction, setting boundaries and removing yourself from the situation, was not just reasonable, it was healthy." "It does not feel healthy," I admitted. "I feel like I exploded a bomb in the middle of my life." Sometimes a controlled demolition is necessary before you can rebuild something structurally sound, she replied. What you are experiencing, guilt, doubt, grief, these are normal responses when we begin to dismantle unhealthy relationship patterns, especially with family. I left that first session with a mixture of validation and new questions to consider. Was I prepared to maintain these boundaries if my family refused to respect them? What would a healthier relationship with them look like? What did I actually want moving forward? Meanwhile, practical matters demanded attention. I contacted Linda at work and explained that I needed to extend my leave and possibly work remotely for a while. To my surprise, she was immediately supportive. Your work is excellent and you meet all your deadlines, she said simply. Where you do that work from is secondary. Take the time you need, set up your remote workspace, and check in for weekly video meetings. We will make it work. Her easy acceptance of my needs without questioning or judgment highlighted once again the contrast between healthy and unhealthy relationships in my life. With work arrangements secured, Grace and I discussed a longer-term housing solution. The room is yours for as long as you need it, she assured me. But if you want your own space, my neighbor 2 doors down is looking for someone to sublet her apartment while she does a 6-month teaching assignment in Japan. The idea of having my own space again, even temporarily, was appealing. I met with Grace's neighbor Allison, a professor of environmental science, with kind eyes and a straightforward manner. Her apartment was a small but charming 1-bedroom with built-in bookshelves and a tiny balcony perfect for morning coffee. We agreed on a 6-month sublet with the option to extend if needed. While I was establishing this new temporary life in Portland, my family's attempts to contact me escalated in predictable ways. When I finally turned my phone back on after a week, I found hundreds of messages and missed calls. My mother's communications followed a clear pattern: initial anger and demands followed by guilt trips, then concerns about my mental health, and finally threats disguised as concern. This behavior is completely unacceptable, read one early message. You cannot simply disappear and expect everyone to accommodate your emotional outburst. A few days later, your father barely slept last night worrying about you. Is this really how you want to treat people who have given you everything? Then I am seriously concerned about your mental state. This kind of erratic behavior suggests you might need professional help. And finally, if we do not hear from you within 24 hours, we will be forced to file a missing persons report. This is not a threat, just a necessary step for your safety. I forwarded the last message to Uncle Theodore, who called me immediately. She will not actually do it, he assured me. Filing a false report could get her in trouble. And Amanda never does anything that might reflect poorly on her. But I will talk to her and make it clear that you are an adult who has chosen to take space, not a missing person. True to his word, the threat was not mentioned again. My mother's approach shifted to a new tactic: contacting my friends. Jasmine reported that Amanda had called her multiple times, alternating between demanding information about my whereabouts and suggesting that Jasmine had a responsibility to convince me to contact my family. I told her I respect your decisions and boundaries, Jasmine said. She did not like that answer. Brittany took her campaign to social media, posting vague but pointed messages about family worry and unexplained disappearances that painted her as the concerned sister without explicitly mentioning me. Her performance of concern might have been convincing to anyone who did not know the full story. Brandon was the first to break ranks. 2 weeks after our confrontation, he sent me a message that felt different from the others. I have been thinking a lot about everything. About the things I told Mom and Dad about your apartment, about the way we were planning your birthday. I got caught up in wanting their approval and did not think about how it would affect you. I am not saying this to make you respond or come back. I just wanted you to know I am sorry. The simple acknowledgement of wrongdoing without excuses or demands was so unexpected that I found myself crying as I read it. I did not respond immediately, but saved the message, seeing it as a potential opening for future healing. A week later, my father called when I was feeling strong enough to answer. Unlike my previous conversations with him, this time, he was alone without my mother's influence. "Coco," he said, his voice breaking slightly, "I miss you." "I miss you too, Dad," I admitted, surprised by how true it was despite everything. "I have been thinking about what you said," he continued. "About me not standing up for you. You were right. I have spent so many years going along with your mother's way of doing things that I stopped questioning whether it was right." Why, I asked him. Why did you never say anything?" There was a long pause. Fear, I suppose. Fear of conflict. Fear of rocking the boat. It was easier to be passive, to tell myself that your mother had good intentions, even when her methods were harsh. But that was not fair to you. His honesty was both painful and healing. For the first time, he was not making excuses or trying to smooth things over. He was acknowledging his role in the dynamic that had hurt me. "I cannot promise I will suddenly become perfect at standing up to your mother," he said. "But I am trying. I have started seeing a counselor to work on being more assertive, and I want you to know that I am proud of you, of the life you have built and the person you have become, even if I have not always shown it." That conversation did not magically fix everything, but it opened a door that had previously seemed firmly closed. As April turned to May, I gradually established a new routine in Portland. I worked remotely during the day, explored the city in the evenings, and began attending a local art group that Grace recommended. There I met people who shared my creative interests without judgment or competition, including Allison, whose apartment I was subletting. "Art saved me after my divorce," she told me during one session as we both worked on watercolor landscapes. "It gave me a way to process emotions I could not put into words." I found myself opening up to her about my family situation, and she shared her own experiences with setting boundaries with difficult relatives. Each conversation with someone who had faced similar challenges helped me feel less alone, less like the problem was inherently with me. In my second therapy session with Dr. Morgan, we focused specifically on establishing healthy boundaries. "Boundaries are not punishments," she explained. "They are not about controlling others' behavior, but about clarifying what you will and will not accept in your life. The challenge is maintaining them consistently, especially with people who are not used to you having them." With her guidance, I drafted a formal email to my family outlining my conditions for reestablishing contact. The process was emotionally exhausting but clarifying, forcing me to really consider what I needed to feel safe and respected in these relationships. The email I eventually sent was direct, but not unkind. "After much reflection, I am ready to begin rebuilding communication under the following conditions. 1. Respect for my independence and life choices. Comments about my career, living situation, appearance, or personal life must come from a place of genuine interest, not criticism or attempts to change me. 2. No more family discussions about me when I am not present. If you have concerns, bring them directly to me in a respectful manner. 3. Acknowledgement of how past behaviors have been hurtful. I cannot move forward pretending that the patterns that led to this breaking point did not exist. 4. Commitment to new patterns of interaction. This means no more comparisons, no more unsolicited advice, and no more using gifts or family events as leverage for control. I am not asking for perfection, but for effort and awareness. I am open to gradually rebuilding our relationship on healthier terms, but I will maintain distance if these boundaries are not respected." The responses were telling. My mother and Brittany both rejected the conditions outright, calling them unreasonable demands and evidence of continued emotional instability. My father and Brandon tentatively accepted them, acknowledging that change would take time but expressing willingness to try. Uncle Theodore, who had become my most consistent family support, visited Portland in late May. We spent a day exploring the city together, talking openly about family history and the patterns that had shaped our respective relationships with the rest of the family. "Your mother was raised in a highly critical household," he explained as we walked through a rose garden. "What you are experiencing is generational patterns passed down without examination. But that does not excuse it, and it does not mean you have to accept it." On what would have been the day of my elaborate birthday party, I instead had a small gathering at a local restaurant with Grace Jasmine, who flew up for the weekend. Allison and a few other new friends I had made through the art group. There were no carefully choreographed moments, no hidden agendas, just genuine conversation and laughter. As I blew out the candles on a cake that I had not baked to please anyone else, I realized that this simple celebration felt more authentic than any family event I could remember. It was a bittersweet realization, the grief of what I had lost mixed with appreciation for what I was finding instead. 3 months after my abrupt departure from San Francisco, I found myself settled into a life in Portland that felt increasingly like home. I had moved from Grace's spare room to Allison's sublet and eventually to my own small apartment in a converted Victorian house painted a cheerful yellow. I decorated it exactly as I wanted, with colorful artwork, mismatched furniture I loved, and plants in every window, no careful staging to meet anyone else's approval. My remote work arrangement with Linda had evolved into a permanent position, with occasional trips back to San Francisco for important meetings. The company even offered me a small team to lead on a new project, recognizing my contributions in a way my family never had. Additionally, I had started selling some of my personal artwork through a local gallery, something I had always wanted to pursue but had been discouraged from as impractical. Therapy with Dr. Morgan continued weekly, then bi-weekly, as I developed stronger coping mechanisms and clearer understanding of the family dynamics that had shaped me. The work was challenging, often painful, but I could feel the progress in small moments: my decreased anxiety when the phone rang, my ability to state preferences without apology, my growing confidence in my own judgment. Healing is not about forgetting or pretending the hurt never happened, Dr. Morgan reminded me in one session. It is about processing the pain so it no longer controls your present and future. My relationships with family members had evolved in different ways, each following its own path based on their willingness to respect my boundaries. Brandon and I had reestablished a cautious but growing connection. Our weekly video calls were initially awkward but gradually became more natural as we learned to relate to each other as adults rather than falling into childhood patterns. He had moved out of our parents' sphere of influence, taking a job in Seattle that put physical distance between him and the family dynamics that had shaped us both. "I never realized how much I was still seeking their approval until you left," he admitted during one call. "It was like seeing you break free made me question why I was still trying so hard to meet expectations that kept changing." My father and I spoke monthly, our conversations careful but increasingly honest. He had continued with his therapy, working on finding his voice in his marriage and other relationships. Sometimes he would share small victories, moments where he had expressed an opinion different from my mother's, or set his own boundary. These stories, simple as they were, represented significant change for him. Uncle Theodore remained a steady presence, calling regularly and visiting when his photography work brought him to the Pacific Northwest. He provided continuity, a family connection that felt supportive rather than suffocating. With my mother and Brittany, however, the distance remained. Neither was willing to acknowledge how their behavior had contributed to the family breakdown, and both continued to frame my boundaries as unreasonable demands or signs of emotional instability. Occasional messages still came through, usually around holidays or family events, always with subtle pressure to put this behind us, without any real change or acknowledgement. In July, Brandon made an unexpected visit to Portland, bringing boxes of my belongings that I had left behind in my hasty departure. "I thought you might want these," he said, setting down a container of sketchbooks and art supplies in my living room. "Plus, it gave me an excuse to see your new place." As we sorted through the items, he provided updates on the family situation that shed light on the consequences of my departure. "Things are different now," he explained. "Mom and Brittany still act like everything is fine, but there is this tension that nobody talks about. Dad is more distant, spends more time on his own interests. I think your leaving forced everyone to look at patterns nobody wanted to acknowledge before." "Do they ever talk about me?" I asked, not sure what answer I was hoping for. "Mom mentions you like you are just temporarily away and will come back to your senses eventually," he said. "Brittany rarely brings you up at all. Dad keeps a photo of you on his desk now, the one from your college graduation. I caught him looking at it sadly once." The information was painful but also freeing. My absence had created ripples, small shifts in a system that had seemed immovable. Whether those shifts would lead to meaningful change remained to be seen, but it confirmed that standing up for myself had been necessary not just for me but perhaps for all of us. As summer turned to fall, I continued building my new life piece by piece. I joined a community garden, enrolled in a photography class taught by a local artist, and even began dating casually, allowing myself to explore connections without the weight of family expectations coloring my perceptions. I still had difficult days, moments of doubt when the guilt would creep back in, or when a family birthday or holiday would pass with minimal contact. But these moments no longer derailed me completely. I had developed tools to process the emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Grief and growth often go hand in hand, Dr. Morgan told me during one particularly difficult session after a challenging call with my father. You are grieving the family relationship you deserved, but never had even as you grow into the person you were always meant to be. As my 29th birthday approached, I found myself reflecting on the dramatic changes of the past year. The previous birthday, with its planned intervention, and my subsequent flight, had been a breaking point, but also a turning point. In choosing myself and refusing to continue patterns that diminished me, I had opened the door to possibilities I had never allowed myself to imagine. The night before my birthday, I found myself looking at an old family photo from a beach vacation when I was 15. We all looked happy, smiling into the camera with the ocean behind us. Had it all been an illusion, that sense of family unity? Or had there been genuine moments of connection amid the control and criticism? The truth I realized was somewhere in between. Families are complex, relationships are layered, and people can both love you and hurt you simultaneously. Recognizing the harm did not negate the love that also existed, complicated as it was. But love without respect and acceptance was not enough to build a healthy adult relationship upon. For my actual birthday, I planned a small gathering at my apartment with my new Portland friends and Jasmine, who had become an expert at finding cheap flights between our cities. There would be no grand speeches, no hidden agendas, just good food and genuine connection. The morning of the celebration, I received an unexpected package. Inside was a small watercolor set from a high-end art supply store with a simple note in my father's handwriting. For your continued journey, with love and respect, Dad. The gift brought tears to my eyes, not because of its monetary value, but because it represented acknowledgement of my path, support for my creative pursuits that had so often been dismissed as impractical. It was a small thing, perhaps, but it felt like the beginning of something new. A relationship based on seeing me for who I actually was, rather than who he wished I would be. That evening, surrounded by friends who accepted me exactly as I was, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for much of my life. The journey had been painful, the losses real, but what I had gained in self-respect and authentic connection was immeasurable. Sometimes, losing what you thought you needed helps you find what you truly deserve. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are the ones that ultimately bring the greatest freedom. And sometimes, the family you build by choice provides the unconditional acceptance that the family you were born into could not offer. As I look forward to my future now, I do so with hope tempered by realism. Some relationships may never heal completely, and that is a grief I will continue to carry. But I will no longer sacrifice my well-being to maintain connections that require me to be less than my full self. I am worthy of respect, acceptance, and love without conditions, as we all are. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with loved ones to protect your mental health? What helped you stay strong when guilt or doubt crept in? Share your experiences in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that standing up for themselves is not selfish but necessary. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply choose yourself.